Absolutely right. The situation on international border as well as line of control continues to remain very alarming and tense. 6 civilians have so far lost their lives. 2 of the women short while back were killed in Pakistani shelling in Rajouri sector. And earlier we have seen the 2 children of the age of 5 and 7. They had sustained splinter injuries and they too succumbed to their injuries while on way to hospital. So the shelling is continuing in that area. Right now the BSF as well as the army too is retaliating. But what is really tense and the worrying thing is that Pakistani Ranger as well as Pakistan Army, they have trained the barrels of their guns towards the civilian villages and they are targeting civilian areas using heavy caliber weaponry like 82mm mortars and 120mm mortars. Today morning it was at about 5:30 when they had violated ceasefire targeting several border outposts as well as civilian areas in Nowshera sector. After that they again opened mouths of their guns at about 6:30 in Ramgarh sector. At 7:30 3 civilians were injured in a Pindi village in Arnia sector. After that one woman, a 19-year-old girl who was making breakfast for the family member, she was hit by the shell that exploded nearby and she died while on her way to hospital. Later on we have seen that the casualty figure is just rising. Right now the 6 people have lost their lives and over 15 have sustained splinter injuries and they had been evacuated to hospital. Situation along the international border as well as line of control continues to remain tense. That clearly indicates the intention of Pakistan that they are trying to inflict casualty of the civilians. As we had been talking to short while back to DIGBS of Dharmendra Parikh, he said that during the last 48 hours, Pakistan has made 3 infiltration attempts to push in terrorists into this side of the border, failing to push in terrorists. Now, in act of frustration, they are targeting civilian areas. Right now, the 3 sectors have been affected. One is Nowshera sector in Rajouri, the second is Arnia sector in Arispura, and third is Ramgarh sector in Samba. So 3 sectors are completely under fire. More than 30 villages have so far been targeted and they have increased the range of their shell. They have changed the projectile of their guns so that the trajectory of the shell is increased to an extent that this 82mm mortar that has normally a range of about 4 to 5 kilometers, it can reach up to 6 kilometers so that many of the villages in the interior areas can be targeted. Most of these villages, what is unfortunate is that most of these villages targeted by Pakistani Rangers or the Pakistan Army, they are far away from the border outposts. That clearly indicates that this is not an accidental shelling, no stray shell is falling, but it is an intentional shelling. Right now the troops on the ground has also been given a clear-cut mandate that they should respond effectively, use equal caliber weapons so that they can silence Pakistani guns. Some of the villagers have already fled from their areas to flee from the killer shells fired from across the border. But many people, because of the heavy shelling, are still stuck up, because today morning while they were moving either to their fields or they were involved in their household chores, that was the time when Pakistani Rangers had started targeting these villages. Place where right now the firing is going on, this is Ramgarh sector. This is around about 45 kilometers away from Jammu city. So this shows that you can see the gravity of and the intensity of the shelling from Pakistan's side, that they are using heavy caliber weaponry and the people are quite terrified. Some of them have already fled to the safer places, but still many of them are stuck up. So the biggest job right now for the administration is that they have to ensure that how to evacuate those people who are stuck up in their homes. Advisory has already been issued asking people to stay indoors, lie on the ground so that they can prevent themselves from getting hit by the flying splinters of the killer shells fired by the trigger-happy Pakistani Rangers. So tension is there on the border and BSF is responding appropriately to silence Pakistani guns.
6 civilian deaths in the last 7 to 8 hours, out of them 2 children and 2 women, Pradeep. That is... I beg your pardon, 4 women and 2 children among those civilians who were killed. Now, that is a rather alarming figure. Pradeep, you know, some important developments. One, of course, you're reporting on the mortar shelling that is happening along the LOC. The other that you also reported earlier on the kind of infiltration bids that are taking place as well. And some of it, 3 of them, in fact, have been foiled by the BSF. And we are also hearing that there is a massive, offensive battalions that are now being deployed along the LOC over and above the Border Action Force.
Yes, you are absolutely right, because Times Now has got the video footage of the thermal imager shot that shows that how 3 infiltration attempts from across the border were filed during the 48 hours by alert BSF personnel in Hiranagar sector. It was during the wee hours on 29th October when 3 terrorists tried to infiltrate into this side of the border, and Pakistan Rangers provided them cover fire to facilitate their infiltration attempt. But retaliatory fire made these 3 terrorists flee back to Pakistan side. On 30th night, again 3 terrorists tried to sneak into this side of the border, taking advantage of the darkness as well as thick vegetation. They came closer to the fence, but BSF retaliated and they took shelter behind one of the culvert, and they kept sitting there till next morning. And after a few hours, again they made the attempt, but this time Pakistani Rangers again provided them cover fire so that these terrorists are able to crawl and sneak into the Indian side of the border. But retaliatory action from the BSF side, as you can see in the visuals, that BSF is firing on those terrorists. One of the terrorists got injured, but they managed to flee back to Pakistan side. That is a worrying trend, that how Pakistan is trying to facilitate infiltration to disturb peace and normalcy in Jammu and Kashmir. And besides this, there is also inputs about the build-up on the other side of the border, because under the garb of the firing, one, they are trying to carry out infiltration. The second, they are trying to engineer border action team attack. Border action team comprises of the terror outfits like Lashkar-e-Toiba and Jaish-e-Mohammed and regular army personnel who help them come into this side of the border. The similar kind of attack we have seen happen just 2-3 days back in the Machal sector when they had mutilated the body of one of the soldiers. So this shows that Pakistani army as well as Pakistan Rangers, they are failing to match the firepower and the military might of the Indian troops. Now they are resorting to such tactics, either to carry out bat attack, to force infiltration into this side of the border and target civilians, because they know that is what is really going to India hit hard, and that is where they are trying to target, because they know they will not be able to match BSF as well as army firepower. So they are trying to target civilian areas. Let me give you the assessment on the ground. During the last 10 to 12 days, more than 60 villages have been targeted by Pakistani Rangers and Pakistan Army, and about 3,500 shells have been pounded during the last 48 hours only in several areas along the line of control as well as in international border. And BSF too is giving them an appropriate response. Appropriately, they are responding to their shelling. This time, we had been talking to the BSF officials as well as army officials. In fact, clear-cut instruction is given to them. There is a clear-cut mandate that they have not only to react to the shelling from Pakistan side, but they have to ensure that all those notorious and the mischievous posts from where the fire is coming into this side of the border, which has been targeting the civilians, need to be decimated and destroyed. We have seen about 8 to 10 posts have been destroyed during the last few hours, but still the shelling is continuing. Situation continues to remain alarming as civilians continue to fall victim to the killer shells being fired by trigger-happy Pakistani Rangers in Arnia as well as Ramgarh sector.